welcome to Good Business. I'm your host, Nicole Murray. Today's episode will delve into the different layers of the radio business and discover how far it's come over the years through the advancement of technology. Joining us on the show today will be Brett Nossiter, the Program Director of Nova Nation and Coffee, Murray Shoring, announcer and panel operator at 4BH and 4BC, Mike Byrne, Program Director for River 949, and Scott Tongs, Digital Content Editor for Nova 106.9. They'll all be joining us shortly, but first up, let's take a trip down memory lane and look at where radio has come from to where it is today. Well, wireless telegraphy was first commercialised by the Italian Guglielmo Marconi. He patented the process and introduced systems that allowed the transmission of Morse code over the airwaves. We all know what radio is, but how does it work? Radio is a way of transmitting signals without wires, and that's why it's called the wireless. It uses electromagnetic radiation to transmit sounds made in any one place to listeners in many places. Australia adopted radio for communications at sea and in lighthouses, and wireless telegraphy gradually replaced the overland telegraph, which had been completed in 1872. The first station in Australia was 2SB in Sydney, New South Wales, and no other advancement in technology had quite the same impact on people's day-to-day lives than radio did in the 20th century, a time of creativity and change. But it's not just this digital bandwidth that affects the radio business. The technological advancement of society has affected the way consumers interact with the radio medium as well. Which brings us to our first guest, Brett Nossiter, affectionately known as Noz. Hi Noz, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for inviting me to your salubrious studio.
I know, you're welcome. So Noz, tell us about your role as Program Director.
Sure, so I'm the Program Director of DAB Plus, or Digital Radio, which launched in Australia 3 years ago. We've got two brands which you mentioned before, Nova Nation and Coffee. Nova Nation's our dance station and Coffee is our chill out station, so one up, one down. Yeah. We've also got some bandwidth that we do some unique experimental radio stations as well. So we've had a pop-up radio station called Maroon Radio, which was supporting the Maroons as part of the State of Origin, so that popped up for a week alone. And we've also used that bandwidth to create a radio station for a client. So we had Radio Free by Virgin Mobile. So we built a whole station specifically for them and their members.
Gosh,
so
you've been busy.
Keeps me very busy indeed.
Yeah. So how does that online content integrate with, say, the existing marketing and promotions of the business?
Well, online is another complementary way of people touching to your brand. So most radio stations started streaming their services online probably about 10, 12 years ago, and it's now just a given that that's another way that people want to listen to your radio station. So we've got a website where we stream all of our radio stations. We've also got iPhone apps for each of those radio stations and also for Android. Naturally, there's a lot of smartphones out there, so people are now not needing necessarily an FM, an AM, or even a digital radio station. They're just looking for a way to hear that station, whether it's through a podcast, through streaming on their phone, or from their tablet. So there's any number of ways that people want to try and touch and embrace our brands.
Yeah, it's a lot involved now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so have you seen a lot of changes along the way?
Absolutely, yeah. When I first began as just a young kid in a country town in radio, it was you, a microphone and a few CDs, and now it's a very different way to create a show, to create content. You've not only got the radio broadcast side of things, social media now is a really, really important way and an important tool to communicate to your audience, not only within the time frame of your show, but also to pre-promote your show, to talk to your fans and talk to those people who really make your show special. So it's now almost a 24/7 cycle that people work to.
Yeah.
Social media is hugely important, and it's just another way now of them actually talking to you, and they can get that one-on-one direct line of communication. So instead of once upon a time writing on the back of an envelope to enter a competition, you can enter online through the website, you can listen to a podcast. It's now so much more diversified across so many different platforms. It's still radio as a primary platform, that's our heritage, but now there's so many other digital platforms that we can talk to our audience and also connect our clients to our audience.
Yeah, okay. And so how different is it to, say, the standard AM, FM radio? How does it?
So AM is probably the oldest, that's the heritage one that we started with, and then we expanded to FM where we had the ability to do great stereo broadcast. DAB Plus, or digital radio, is another chance now to have increased or better audio quality, but also we can broadcast things like song title information straight to the radio. In some cases, radio can also take slideshows slideshows, so we can send them pictures of album artwork, or here's some information about the weather forecast as well. So again, it's another way that we can interact and talk with our audience and provide them more information to support the audio broadcast as well. On top of that, you've also got your websites and your iPhone apps, and again, there's another layer of communication. So you can have videos that people can play that might be relating to what that person's talking about on air. So there's a lot of different ways and lots of different content. It's more than just a dude and a microphone.
Yeah, it certainly is. And do you think people are taking it up and it's got a good future?
Absolutely. You look at the rate of smartphone take-up, then that's really the future and the direction a lot of people are looking to engage their media and to consume it in their time. So yeah, it's just going to get bigger and bigger. Bigger
and bigger, yeah. And so it's obviously a complicated process with all those things going on. It's almost like a whole entertainment package, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but the results speak for themselves. It's all worth it.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, Noz. We really appreciate you coming in
and
discussing that.
I love what you've done with the studio.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Well, stick around, as coming up we next chat to Murray Shoring, announcer at 4BH and 4BC, and Mike Byrne, the Program Director at River 949. Well, welcome back to Good Business. I'm Nicole Murray. Earlier on in the program, we spoke with Brett Nossiter, who takes care of the online side of radio at Nova 106.9. But now, let's step back a bit and turn to the traditional radio over the wireless. Please welcome our next guest, who is on the other side of the microphone, radio announcer for 4BC and 4BH, Murray Shoring. Hi Murray, how are you?
Hi Nicole, very well, thank you. It makes me feel so old. Well, step back in time.
Not for you.
Oh, okay. I see. Oh, that's all right. Okay.
So Murray, tell us about your role as an announcer. What does that involve?
Well, with 4BC and 4BH, it's slightly different. 4BH is a music station, so it's presenting a music program, talking about the music, a general chat between songs. That's pretty much it. 4BC, on the other hand, is a talkback station, so there's a lot of preparation goes into the programs, depending on what programs you're doing. Afternoons, I've been doing just recently, and that involved a lot more a slightly heavier sort of program content, whereas evenings when I'm filling in there, it's a very lighter program. It's very much a fun program. So a lot of preparation still involved, but it's always good.
Yeah.
Always fun.
And how long have you been involved in the industry?
Oh, 36 years actually in radio and television. Yeah, I started in 4GR Toowoomba in 1976.
Wow, it's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. Used to be okay saying I'd been in radio for 10 years or 15 years. It sounded experienced. When you get up to 25, 30, 36 years, it's you get the impression people are looking at you as if to say, so you couldn't get another job, huh?
Oh,
You're stuck in that one, huh? But it's been good.
But it's been good. And so you would have seen some changes over the time from being a jock back in the early days to now.
Oh, very
How
much
has that
so.
evolved?
Well, back in the first days, the early days, it was record. All commercials were on cartridge. You'd load every cartridge into the cartridge machine individually. You'd play it all manually. You thought it was pretty good when they finally came up with a system that you could hit one button and it'd fire the whole commercial break, one after the other. But originally it was everything manual. Yeah. Of course, these days technology has just run away.
It has. We'll get to that in a minute. But you've got some things there to show us.
Yeah, I've always been a collector of top 40 charts and brochures about the old radio stations. So I've brought in all sorts of things here which are a bit of fun. 4IP, 4GR, this photo of Frank Warwick on the front of a top 40 chart from 1970. Long time ago. Yeah. So I've always been a collector of these sorts of things.
It's a beauty, isn't it?
One day they might be worth something.
It's worth something. So what sort of, how, like in terms of changes in technology, how do you feel that's affected the radio industry?
Well, it's affected it in a big way in that for the announcers who are on air, it's nice and easy these days in many respects that a program can basically run itself. You just tell the computer when you want to talk and you stop down, have a bit of a chat, and then the program runs again. But it's probably too good in many respects in that there are many jobs that aren't available anymore. Once upon a time, announcers would start their careers in the country, in regional areas. Where there might have been 7 or 8 announcers, but these days they don't need 7 or 8 announcers. There might be 1 or maybe 2 announcers, and that announcer might do 1 live program, 1 automated program, and the rest of the day comes out of another market. So technology is a wonderful thing, but it has certainly taken a lot of jobs, as has with every industry, of course, the same thing happened.
And do you feel that radio has embraced the new technology?
Oh, very much so, yes. It has, and it's certainly improved it, made it easier, as I said, but it certainly improved the quality of program presentation, without a doubt. But it's just a shame that in doing so, it has taken away a lot of jobs and a lot of the fun in some respects too. It used to be fun holding on to records and spinning records, as they used to say.
Like a DJ?
Like a DJ, yeah, that's what we were, DJs on the air.
Yeah.
So it was good. But yes, technology has been a wonderful thing, of course.
And the radio stations embraced social media and things like that. How important is that?
Well, for some radio stations, obviously, it's a very, very big thing. For 4BC and 4BH, perhaps not quite as much. I know we have embraced it, and a lot of listeners on the younger side of our target demographic have taken to it. But for many of the demographic for radio stations, such as 4BC and 4BH, it's more important just to turn on your radio and hear what you want to hear. They're not so much into apps or tweeting or Facebook. It's not so important with some radio stations, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So it's good, and then it's going to grow, and it's going to change.
Of course it will. Of course it will grow, and as the audiences take on social media in a bigger way, of course it's going to be a bigger thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much for taking us a little bit down memory lane with that.
You're more than welcome, Nicole.
Sherry.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks, Murray. Well, next up, we went to River 949 to chat with Mike Byrne about program directing.
Mike Byrne. I'm the Program Director here at River 949 in Ipswich. I program the radio station, so look after all of the on-air guys, choose the music that we play on the air, the styles of promotions that we run, the way we interact with our listeners. So day to day, whatever you hear go up the stick on 94.9 FM, up our transmitter, and also out via our online content, our multimedia content. I'm the one looking after that. We tend to program radio stations based on hoping that what we're doing as a whole, as the mix, appeals to a certain target audience and a large group of them, ideally. Particularly in commercial radio, we're trying to appeal to the biggest number of people in our chosen target demographic at any time. So it's sort of based on a bit of guesswork, a bit of research in the first place, history of knowing what works and what doesn't work. It's a bit of a magic melting pot. When we get electronic people metering for radio, I think we're going to completely adjust the way we program radio stations, because we'll know exactly what does and doesn't work minute by minute. And I'm not sure that that's going to be a good thing. I think it's inevitable that we will move to some kind of electronic people meter measurement system and away from the old traditional diary measurement. But I think it's probably a long way away. There's been some trials in the US, and there's also been some trials in Europe, and it's proven to be problematic, mainly because what's actually radio listening? If you walk into a shop, for instance, that's got the radio on, the people meter will pick up that audio. It'll pick up that radio station, and it will tell the measurement company that you were listening to that radio station at the time. But if you're going into a shop and the radio's on in the background, are you really listening to the radio? And I think this is where they've got the problem. They can't quite work out what is actual listening and what isn't listening. And I think the other downside too of electronic measurement will be that we'll change the way we program radio stations, just like television changed the way they program TV stations. They're far more ruthless now. They've got daily numbers that come out every morning. If a show hasn't worked the night before, that hasn't reached that magic million viewers mark nationwide, chances are it won't last more than 1 or 2 weeks. And we see that all the time on all of the commercial television networks. I think the same thing will happen with radio, with electronic people meters. I think what we'll see is far less risk-taking, far less loyalty, and we'll see that, for instance, new songs won't be added to radio as readily as they are now, because nobody will be willing to take the risk. So we'll be able to see every time we play a certain type of song that listeners tune out in droves. And I think that's really dangerous. I think that's a bad side for the industry going forward. So although the diary system is old-fashioned, it's stood us in good stead for the last 40 years, and I think it will for a while longer yet. as we saw with OzTam in television, nearly 15 years ago, we saw a huge disruption to television viewing according to the ratings at least. That cost the TV industry millions of dollars until it all started to settle back down again. Because you're essentially changing the methodology. So you're going from one style of measurement to a completely different style of measurement. I think that radio's struggling with how to work through that problem as well. There are privacy concerns too with regards to how we measure electronically. Radio's unlike television, it's not a sedentary medium. So with television, with the people meters that TV uses for their measurement, it's in a room, it's attached to a television, and you dedicate who's watching at any given time, and it just tracks the TV channels that you're watching. With radio, obviously, that's far more difficult because we're moving around all the time. One of the great benefits of radio is its portability. So how you measure that portability is another thing altogether. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Well, thanks, Mike, for that insight into the behind-the-scenes workings of programming. Well, stick around because coming up next we have our last guest who's going to give us a look at the important role of interacting with the listeners in a way never before thought possible through websites and social media in the radio business. Stick with us. Welcome back. To finish off the show, we have a guest who works as the digital content editor for Nova 106.9, Scott Tongs. Hi Scott, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. So Scott, tell us about your role.
Well, my role involves working very closely with the on-air teams to create content which we put up on the website. So, you know, I get in early in the mornings, work with the breakfast show, filming a lot of content. We do obviously a lot of stunts, a lot of competitions, and just getting that content up online. So it just provides our listeners with another way of engaging and interacting with our radio station.
It's like almost like a whole entertainment package, isn't it?
It is, yeah. No, it's a pretty full-on job, and yeah, some long hours go into it.
And so, how long has your role been in existence, considering the infancy, I suppose, of this sort of digital marketing?
Well, it's been around, I guess, for the last sort of 3 or 4 years. But in its current form, probably only the last couple of years where we've really focused heavily on video. And obviously with the rise of social media, with Facebook and Twitter, that's obviously added a new dimension to the role. And, you know, just meant that we need to be constantly creating new content and you know, giving our listeners another way to sort of engage with us, I guess.
And so how important is Facebook and Twitter to the business in terms of exposure and that for the station?
It's absolutely critical at the moment. So many of our fans, you know, they've grown up using Facebook now, and they just expect it. You know, whether it's our on-air announcers interacting with them directly, or just interacting with our brand, it's absolutely critical. And you know, it just gives them another way of being able to, you know, request songs or just let us know what they think of our station, and just generally interact with us, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and are they embracing it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, just in Brisbane alone, with our Nova 106.9 Facebook page, we've got 60,000 listeners, you know, who are engaged with our brand, and it's just fantastic to be able to talk directly with them. You know, we can do something live on the show, put the video up online, post a link on the Facebook page, and we've instantly got those people that can jump online, check it out, and you know, it just generates more traffic for our website, which in turn obviously equates to revenue for the business.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. Is it directly related to Facebook, or is that hard to gauge?
It is hard to gauge. It's difficult to put a dollar value on our fans. Although, you know, I guess that the main benefit is the fact that we can pull in traffic onto our website, which we can put ads onto. So that's probably the sort of secondary way that we do, you know, generate revenue through our social media is driving the traffic to our website.
Yeah, okay. And so when you have to use social media, is there a plan that you use, or do you just, is it what's happening at the moment and you vary it that way, or?
No, we do have a bit of a plan to it. We obviously don't like to bombard people with information, and obviously because our page is based around what's actually happening on air. You know, we often have a post for the breakfast show, then one for the daytime announcers, whether it's a competition that we're running, something for our drive show, and then something for nights. So we try to keep it so it's based around what's actually happening on on air.
Yeah.
But then, you know, it's also great just to keep it varied and post something that could be topical outside of what's happening on radio, something that people are just interested in. So there is a plan when it comes to content, but then there's also, you know, you have to have a plan with dealing with, you know, when people write in, they could be complaining about something and how you handle that. I mean, there's so many examples of social media gone wrong, so
Yes.
you need to have a plan in place to be able to handle criticism online. So yeah.
And praise too.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Lots of praise.
It's great. I mean, the announcers love receiving praise on there, so it's it's good.
And so you do video as well. So are you taking video within the studio and capturing those moments so that they can feel more connected?
Yeah. So if ever we've got guests in the studio, we've often got, you know, it could be an artist in the studio or someone who's just released a movie, any sort of celebrity. You know, we'll record that, film the. Sorry. We'll film them and then put that obviously online for our fans to check out. And often, you know, because radio is so instant, the video needs to be, you know, shot, edited and uploaded while the show's still on air, so the guys on air can then hook back to it and, you know, say jump online, check out the video.
That's a big call, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a very instant and rapid medium, and things, you know, if they're sort of not up on that day, fans forget about it, and the next day something new.
Something new. And so, how essential do you feel a role of the digital content editor is for radio?
I think it's it's just critical now. I mean, it's just expected. You know, listeners, they'll hear something on air and they'll want to be able to see it. You know, there's so many times we do different stunts, or the guys will be out and about, and you know, people just, you know, it's one thing to be able to hear it, but then, you know, people want to be able to jump online and share it and actually see it. So it's I think it's a critical part of it now, and it's only going to continue to grow as online continues to grow.
Yeah, so you see it growing quite rapidly? Or?
Definitely, yes,
yeah. Okay. Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? There's so many aspects to radio now. It's like a one-stop shop almost.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's it's incredible, and as I say, I'm sure it'll just continue to grow and continue to be more integrated. And obviously with social media, it's just it all just links hand in hand.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. We appreciate you coming on and sharing all that with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, that concludes our episode of Good Business this week. Thank you for joining us, and especially to all our guests, Brett Nossiter, Murray Shoring, Mike Byrne, and of course, Scott Tongs. Through tonight's episode, it is clear that the direction radio has been forced to take is one evolving and changing as society changes. For more details on the show, please visit our website, goodbusinesstv.com.au. I'm Nicole Murray, and you've been watching Good Business. Bye-bye.